Hey Technofreaks, TeknoOdin here, continuing the character breakdowns for Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. This time, our hands are stained with blood. I see little reason to stay them now. With Vayne!
Do you intend to provide a challenge?
A Vanguard, Vayne is the master of wall rushes, able to set up an opponent from almost any angle. This is done through his unique mechanic I'm naming Relative Neutrals. Unlike any other character in the game, both of Vayne's neutral BP attacks are able to be finished in any of the main relative directions, those being forwards, backwards, left, right, up, and finally down. This, as I stated, allows Vayne to choose where he wants to place his opponent in the area. BP attacks are as followed, and to get through them all, we're gonna have to combine both neutrals since they pretty much act the same. So, both his ground and air neutrals, Earth Rive and Sky Shear, are 3 input attacks with multiple finishes that have Vayne lead in with a kick before following up with a punch. And then we go to the finish. His neutral finish, Bone Splitter, has Vayne finish with an almighty punch, sending the opponent flying for the wall rush. This is just your standard neutral attack, nothing really special here. His forward neutral finish, Backdraft, has Vayne lunge forwards behind the opponent before delivering a back kick, sending the opponent flying the opposite way for a wall rush, similar to Warrior of Light's forward air. This is a great move if you're backed against the wall, and the knockback distance makes it not too bad at taking opponents away from a fight. His left neutral finish, Dominance. Hey, what? His left neutral finish, Dominance, has Vayne strafe to the left of the opponent before backhanding them, sending them flying to the right for a wall rush. And just to compact things all together, his right neutral finish, Iron Elbow, does the exact opposite, and has Vayne strafe to the right and elbow charging them to the left. Both these attacks are your main go-to setups near walls, as a lot of neutral attacks have this problem of sometimes not getting a wall rush if the angle is too side on. Now, every finish I've mentioned so far are exactly the same for both ground and air. It's only his back neutral finishes that differ. So we start with his ground backwards neutral finish, Rising Dragon. This has Vayne harness his inner Rock Lee and performs a Lotus Kick, sending the opponent vertically into the air. While not a move you can combo into, sadly, it does set up for HP attacks with that high vertical hitbox, so not too bad. His aerial backwards neutral finish, Falling Phoenix, has Vayne drive the heel of his boot down onto the opponent, dunking them to the ground, and sending them flying for the wall rush. Think the final hit of Cecil's Nightfall. Now, like all dunk moves, the damage is greater the higher you are. Amazingly, this mechanic comes at no real cost. Normally, characters with special BP attack traits, like Tidus for example with his dash attacks, lose other BP attacks to make up for it.
If one wishes to obtain something, something of equal value must be given. This is the law of equivalent exchange.
But Vayne gets everything. So, his forward ground battering ram is a single input rush, similar to Clim Hazard and Rumble Rush, where Vayne rushes in with a shoulder charge before delivering a 1-inch punch, sending the opponent flying for the wall rush. It's got a bit of wind up, but a huge poise window, and not bad range, with the max range of the rush being within zone 2 on your radar. Though you want to get a lot closer than that since the shoulder charge itself deals damage until you reach your destination. His backwards ground is Machwave, a single input projectile and one of his signature techniques from the boss fight in his game of origin, Final Fantasy XII. Machwave is a sort of fusion between Exdeath's Vacuum Wave and Cloud's level 3 Blade Beam. This has Vayne create a blue wave of energy that will slowly travel to the line between zones 1 and 2. After that, it will gain a purple hue and rapidly move to your opponent, with a max range of the line between zones 3 and 4. The move has some decent tracking. What's more, if you hit an opponent up close, the vacuum wave will still carry on to its full range, hitting anyone in its way. So, not a bad option to use in keep away situations and probably your main go-to projectile in the neutral, but also like Vacuum Wave, it's your go-to core buster. His forwarder, Eminence, is pretty much an anti-air battering ram, with a little shorter range, say the line between zones 1 and 2, and takes you about double jump height. Like with any of these moves, dodge cancelling after the attack will allow you to quickly gain more and more height, allowing for some dive bomb plays. And this makes Vayne the second Vanguard to actually have this style of move, Paladin Cecil being the first. His backer, Undertow, is the mirrored version of Eminence, where Vayne will perform a dive kick similar to Paladin Cecil's Saint's Fall, sending the opponent flying for the wall rush. And there's a lot of similarities to Vayne and Cecil here. Both have the ability to dive bomb, something which is more of an assassin trait, only Vayne's attacks bar his neutrals are all one go. You only need to input it once, and as I say this I've just realised that Vayne's cost for his neutrals were actually the rest of his BP attack inputs. So there you go.
This is the law of equivalent exchange.
His dash attack, Steel Fusillade, is another projectile attack that has Vayne conjure his swords before firing them out at the opponent. The move is chargeable with both the range and the amount of swords depending on how long you charge. Without charging, Vayne will send out just 3 swords, with the max range being the line between zones 2 and 3 on your radar. At full charge, Vayne will send out 5 swords, with the max range boosted to the line between zones 3 and 4. This move is another go-to move in the neutral, dealing slightly more damage than Machwave, but without that piercing trait. However, with it being chargeable, it can easily be switch cancelled. Though to be fair, the time it takes Machwave to get full steam going, you can also switch targets. Either way, good pokes for the neutral. For HP attacks, we start with Force of Will, his final technique in his normal boss fight phase. This has Vayne unleash a flurry of punches before moving behind the opponent and smashing them the other way. This is basically like Octaslashing concept. It has no invincibility, so projectile HP attacks with good range and tracking will stop them in its tracks. But for melee based HP attacks, that side switch can be hard to catch, and can even feed Vayne a nice double hit. His second HP attack is Contempt, Vayne Novus's first phase technique, and is a contained explosion attack similar to Firian's Weapon Master. The move is also chargeable, but the max range won't even hit zone 2. The furthest you'll get is the line between zones 1 and 2. But what it lacks in range, it really does make up for in speed. It's easily able to land off a wall rush, even without dash cancelling. His third HP attack is Inviolable Will, Vayne Novus's second phase technique. This move, if I could best describe, is the hybrid of Solution 9 and Vortex of Arms, where Vayne uses his swords to create a sphere around him that explodes. This move is fast if you just tap the HP attack button, and similar to Vortex of Arms, you can extend the time you are in the sphere by holding down the HP attack button, dealing more BP damage in the process. Also, melee opponents hate this move, but it isn't impenetrable. Good timing on a melee HP attack will cancel it out, and ranged HP attacks make you a sitting political duck. His fourth HP attack is Tree of Sephira, Vayne Novus's final technique. And since I keep going with comparisons, this is more or less an improved version of Kane's Jump/Dragoon's Pride and Noctis's Shooting Star, where Vayne shoots out a solar beam and follows it, before crashing down onto the opponent. The move is chargeable with the range increasing each level. Uncharged, the max range is just touching the line between zones 2 and 3, the same range as Shooting Star and Kane's standard jump. With level 2, that range is boosted to inside zone 3, which is the same as Kane's jump 2, and the max charge boosts that range to just touching the line between zones 3 and 4, equaling that of Kane's Dragoon's Pride. so really not bad range. But which is better? And I'm really starting to hate that question, because to be honest, they're all good. I do lean towards Tree of Sephira more than I thought I would. It's just that perfect mix of Dragoon's Pride and Shooting Star. And with that move being chargeable, you have the ability to switch cancel. Plus, just like Shooting Star and Dragoon's Pride, you disappear and lose your opponent's line of sight. All these traits create a switch-charging, sight-breaking dive bomb that hits way more than it should be allowed. And that earns my seal of approval. Force of Will does decent BP damage and has that side switch that I think will catch players looking for the save out, but with the lack of invincibility like Omnislash and Master Dancer has, you are way too open for attacks. Contempt is stupid fast and has a decent hitbox, but that range is way too short, and charging only becomes that of Mind Games, which is great and all, but if you wall rush the opponent, you should land it anyway, so there's no real point to the charge. Unless you get a lag spike of the century, you really shouldn't be missing on a wall rushed opponent. Now, Inviolable Will surprisingly is the weakest to me, and that's mind-boggling, that the concept of using your forward air to climb up into the sky, then dropping down and landing Inviolable Will should be a given on paper, but I don't think his speed allows for that. The orb's hitbox feels kind of off, and I found that I got cancelled out of it way more than I could remember getting cancelled out of Blaze or Vortex. Plus it has a bit of recovery when the orb dissipates, which if the enemy knows and times their HP attack right, this political duck gets his goose cooked.
Alright, who's been writing the script watching the Food Channel?
His unique EX skill, Writ of Conquest, sits on a you don't know how much time I won't get back for testing this bloody thing 90-second cooldown, while lasting for about 25 seconds, and is essentially the positive version of Kefka's Heartless Angel, as instead of giving numerous debuffs to opponents in range, it will grant numerous buffs to you and any teammate within the max range of the line between zones 2 and 3. At level 1, Vayne will grant a defense boost and a boost to the EX skill cooldown when hitting an enemy. At level 2, he will add onto that a speed buff and a BP regen of 16 BP per second. And finally, at max level, Vayne stacks onto all of that an attack buff and a HP regen of, you guessed it, 16 HP per second. This is a lot of buffs, but I doubt you'll be getting to max level all the time. The charge is quite long, so long that I kinda kept messing up the level 2 charge testing this out, just because it was my instinct to release the button, because I felt I was that vulnerable. Now max charge itself is about 4 seconds. 4 very long seconds. This skill is so good when you pull it off, because the amount of buffs you can have on the team is insane. There's a reason I have been mentioning Vayne in team comps since way before this video. As for general EX skills, oh, we have loads. Boon is always going to be good, turning that 25-second active time into a 36-second active time. That's over a third of the initial cooldown, and a good old Provoke Teleport Tree of Sephira combo can't be overlooked. But let's talk about a new invader to the realm, and a good reason to start incorporating Enfeeble more. Odin. This dapper gent, spoilers, has an ability to be invincible, and his resources are based on his dash attacks. Not to mention Tidus, whose whole offense is derived from dash attacks. Enfeeble will negate that dash bar for a moment, stopping the offense more or less in its tracks, but will allow Vayne, who as a vanguard is not really all that fast, to catch up to those hit and run style assassins and very keep away marksmen a lot easier. As for team comp, of course you can add the buffs from Bartz, Kuja or Ramza to the team to inflate those you already have. But why not do a bit of a yin-yang style and add Kefka to supply ailments while you buff. Overall, Vayne is surprisingly better than I was expecting. I initially felt that limiting his big options to his neutrals would kinda hinder him, but to be honest, his other BP attacks are very efficient at granting him trade-offs and mobility, but he is not without flaws. While his moves are good, he needs walls to really be effective. Not saying he can't hold his own in open spaces, but a lot of other vanguards have more tools to work with in that space. But that's kind of his game plan, to get to the wall and set up either yourself or your teammates, utilizing Mach-Wave and Steel Fusillade in the neutrals, switching targets as you go, and then using those poise attacks to kind of push the enemy to that wall and then set up. And remember, Vayne, like Paladin Cecil, has a lot of verticality and can dive bomb very well with that backwards air. Keep this in mind, and you'll show that they had best find the strength they need to correct you.
We stride ever toward our goal.
Okay, that's it for today's breakdown. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell thingy, and share this video. Also, if you have any tips and tricks you found yourself, please share them in the comments section below. And finally, tune in next time where we prefer the term treasure hunter with luck. But until that day, this has been TeknoOdin. Take care.